Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fourth year of our Leadership Matters webinar. This is our first webinar for the current academic year, and my name is Les Stein. I'm the faculty lead for the Master of Science in Organizational Leadership Program at Northeastern University's College of Professional Studies. Just for information, this webinar will be recorded, just so you know, and we will take questions afterwards, after the presentation. And if you have any, please put them in the, I encourage you to put them in the chat box, and we will get to them once the presentation is concluded. I think you'll agree with me that today's global society, whether in business, politics, academia, or other sectors, urgently needs strong leadership. Such leadership requires a deep understanding and appreciation of both emotional and social intelligence. In the very recent past, another layer has been added to our already full plates. And you know what that is, artificial intelligence. This has created new and significant challenges for people in leadership positions. Today's guest presenter, Dr. Mimosa Demodugno, will address some of these challenges in her discussion on leading responsible AI initiatives. To introduce our guest is my colleague and friend, Dr. Sriram Rajagopalan, a faculty member in the Graduate Leadership Program and a lecturer in several other programs within the college, to include project management and informatics. Sriram's experiences go well beyond academia, and he epitomizes the meaning and the true meaning of scholar practitioner. Here to introduce our guest presenter, Dr. Sriram Rajagopalan.
Thank you, Dr. Les. This is a wonderful opportunity to talk about responsible AI in today's context. And I'm so glad to have Dr. Demodugno here. She is one of the leaders in data, privacy, and AI governance space. Mimosa is primarily focused on building governance at scale and data products involving data sources and AI model. Working with high-performing teams, she is driving democratization of enterprise data for better insights and usage consistent with the best practices and regulatory compliance, as well as building principled and responsible AI frameworks and models. Mimosa holds a PhD in information technology with concentration on AI and prescriptive analytics. Responsible AI and data privacy are her main research focus in various industries, contributing in building trustworthy AI models and preserving the privacy of personal information at the same time. She enjoys working for companies and institutions like Northeastern University. I'm so glad to have you here as part of Northeastern University, Mimosa, that foster innovations and advancements in the field of technology. I don't want to take too much time in introducing her, all the credentials. There's a big, laundry list. But without further ado, I would like to pass the baton to you. Mimosa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. This is it's a great pleasure to be here with the faculties, with the students, with other guests that we have in this meeting. Thank you, Sriram and Les, for inviting me to speak in terms of leadership, why it matters in the age of AI. So thank you for for that. It's a favorite saying, for me, from Eisenhower. What is leadership? It's the art of getting someone else to do something you want done, but because he wants to do it. So again, leadership is one of those concepts and one of those definitions that has been for the longest that I can remember. So it's really, really important. I'm just going to minimize this for a second. So I put a little bit of content in here in terms of how does leadership varies, from or differs from the regular management, where in terms of the role, leaders are visionaries, strategic thinkers, problem solvers. In terms of the focus that they have, they define the purpose, they set the direction for the team. In terms of the approach, they create a mission statement, they have a vision, and they lead others, towards that mission statement and vision. In terms of the methodology, they evaluate strength, the needs, the marketplace, how can we position our products and AI in that particular marketplace. In terms of the style, they inspire people. It's an inspiration type of role model. They foster commitment, they foster teamwork, and in terms of the outcome, they reach long-range goals and objectives. There are some qualities that kind of like differentiate good leaders from others, and that's, for instance, the shared vision. How do they lead in terms of change or at the time of change? How do they inspire people? How do they motivate people to do better? The honesty, authenticity, they set example, they lead by example, they empower the people that work for them or don't work from them, because in the age of AI, we do a lot of projects in terms of cross-functional teams. So it's really important that we empower people even cross-functionally. They're forward-looking and they're very competent in what they're doing. There are many types or many styles of the leadership. I personally, not only I have positioned myself to this particular style, but I consider myself a transformational leader because I take the vision and I make sure that the team is marching towards those goals, those outcomes. I motivate the team. I make sure that the team is performing well. I make sure that the team is innovative enough in terms of the individual performance. They're getting to do what they love to do and what their skill set is aligned with. And I make sure that they grow professionally. I make sure that they, in terms of the intellectual stimulation, they have what they need in terms of, like I said, innovation, creativity, the goals and the challenges and such. But at the same time, I always, just like I will be accountable for my position, I always, hold my team accountable for their outcomes as well. But it's especially in the age of AI, when we have so much transformation that is going on, especially the digital transformation, I think that a transformational leader can be someone that can definitely move the needle forward. So in terms of the responsible AI, let's focus on responsible AI and leadership in that space and the evolution that we have had, in terms of responsible AI. At Northeastern here, we have a particular class that is tailored towards responsible AI, and Umesh and myself on the artificial intelligence program for the master's degree, we have created this class, data governance and responsible AI, and we define responsible AI from a development perspective, from a deployment perspective, from the use of artificial intelligence and the systems, kind of like, how we align with the ethical, with the legal, how are we mindful and self-aware of the trust considerations for our society? And responsible AI, usually it involves ensuring that artificial intelligence technologies are developed and they're used in a way that they prioritize certain principles. And I have built those artificial intelligence frameworks years ago, and continuing to do so based on the principles of fairness, transparency, accountability, privacy, safety, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that all the artificial intelligence models that we are building, they are not discriminating towards certain groups of our society. They're transparent. They're, someone is accountable for the model. In terms of the privacy, we want to make sure that that the data of the personal information of our data subject is secure. So in terms of kind of like, in a nutshell, responsible AI includes accurate, reliable, effective, fairness, the making sure that artificial intelligence systems and the models are understandable. And I already mentioned the data privacy. It's really important because we need to protect the personal information of all of us and others. In terms of the accountability, we establish those type of processes. We put the policies, standards, and controls and mechanisms that that are going to help us to achieve that. Ethical consideration are really key. We need to adhere to the ethical guidelines and the standards when we are developing or deploying or afterwards, after the models are in production. And of course, we need to have that resilience in terms of how to protect the systems from external sources, vulnerabilities that exist, because I mentioned privacy, but privacy and security stand hand to hand. And last but not least, the artificial intelligence models or any type of artificial intelligence systems or platforms or frameworks that we build need to be transparent, open, transparent, and so that way we can achieve those outcomes that we aspire to achieve. I'm going to mention some of the ethical challenges that exist right now when it comes to the building or managing and monitoring this artificial intelligence models. And I've put together here, this slide particularly talks about what are the types of concerns. For instance, inconclusive evidence, inscrutable evidence, misguided evidence, unfair outcomes, and we know, how important that section is there, or other type of effects that we see in terms of the transformation, especially in the digital era, and of course the traceability. And these particular concerns are linked to some ethical challenges and some ethical consideration that any one of us, anybody that is building artificial intelligence models, especially the leadership, is supposed to make sure that we do have processes that are addressing those ethical challenges, and we're making sure that those the concerns are fully addressed, and we have a framework in place that is based on principled and responsible AI. For instance, I'll mention just some of those. For instance, discrimination in terms of the unfair outcomes. That's, we don't want to discriminate with our artificial intelligence models against, race, gender, religion, other, types of the aspects of that particular ethical challenge, or bias. And I'll talk more about bias, which is based on the fairness principle, one of the most debatable principles in artificial intelligence. And of course, we have here, for instance, privacy, the moral responsibility, how we are addressing the safety and the resilience, privacy and security going hand to hand. But also, it's really important that when we build these models, we also have some type of process in place that is going to be able to, to monitor, to audit those models. There are some considerations when it comes to the leadership, because in the age of AI, we need to balance innovation and the ethical considerations as we develop this artificial intelligence system and these models. Well, the first thing, at least what I have done, particularly as a leader in the field, is to build a principled and responsible artificial intelligence framework based on the following principles. Again, I am putting some principles that I have used, but to me, as long as you put some really, really good principles, it doesn't matter really, what they are, as long as you cover every single aspect of those concerns and those ethical considerations that I mentioned. So the principles that I have worked and I have created, as part of my frameworks have been transparency, accountability, fairness, privacy, human in the loop. All those are really important because we want our systems to be fully transparent, meaning that, if from a consumer perspective, I want to make sure that I do have that understanding of the systems, or the artificial intelligence models that have been built and I'm using. From an accountability perspective, when the data scientists and artificial intelligence engineers build this artificial intelligence models, they are accountable for making sure, not only during development and deployment part, but also after the fact, how we monitoring for for the data changes that can happen or other type of drift in terms of the distribution of the data and such. Fairness, I mentioned a little bit earlier as well. It's one of those main principles, bias versus non-biased. There are so many examples out there that talk about, how companies are being biased, towards, for instance, race, gender, other type of aspects in our society. Privacy, there are so many concerns, at least, from my point of view, in terms of the privacy of the artificial intelligence models. And there are some regulations that have already appeared, like, for instance, the European Act, the AI Act, is definitely one of the the laws that talks about the fairness, the transparency, and accountability, and other things. But also from a privacy perspective, we do have regulations that have been established thus far. For instance, GDPR in the European countries is one of those laws that looks deep into the privacy. But also in US, even though we don't have a comprehensive federal law, we do have, for instance, CCPA, CPRA, we have Virginia law, we have other type of privacy laws that have come from state to state. Also, it's important to have the human in the loop. And the reason that we want to have that human in the loop is because we are not in the position right now, and I'll talk a little bit later in terms of where we are in terms of AI and where we can potentially be. But right now, we are at the stage of AI that we need the human in the loop, because that will ensure that there is that communication between AI and the human. Another consideration when it comes to the leadership in AI is that we need to be a team. Leaders proactively need to engage with the policymakers on the AI development. And the reason that I say that is because it's everyone's obligation. Every one of us here in this room, it's responsible for the artificial intelligence models that we build, or that we are part of that team. The AI industry, or maybe like the AI discipline, has been dominated by the biggest players in the market, like, for instance, like Google, Amazon, IBM, and other companies. So, and even though, some work has been done, I think that because these companies are dominating the market, they need to find ways, and altogether we need to find ways to sit down with the policymakers and develop some of those obligations that we need in terms of making the artificial intelligence systems and models that we build responsible. And we need to participate, to collaborate in balancing innovation and the ethical obligation. Right now, we are really hungry for that innovation. The genie is out of the bottle, and we are definitely continuing to innovate in AI, which is a wonderful thing. And we should not do anything to pause that, because it's a wonderful thing to have innovation. But we also need to find that happy medium between the innovation and the ethical obligations, and to bring those diverse voices on the table, to set the standards for ethical data partnership, to invest on the ethical part of the data, those data sources that can help us, that collectively can help us move the needle forward. Another consideration from a leadership perspective is that we need to foster a culture of responsibility, ethical awareness in our artificial intelligence teams. How do we do that? Well, we need to prioritize comprehensive ethic, educational training resources, and to have those available for our teams. We need to encourage the open dialogue about potential issues that can come up during the development or after the development. We need to establish clear guidelines, accountability measures for our team, for ourselves as leaders. We need to promote diverse perspectives in the artificial intelligence projects and products. We need to empower our teams that if they have a concern, they need to raise that concern when it comes to ethical considerations. We need to ensure that our leadership style it sets the first example. We need to, as leaders, we need to set that first example by integrating ethical considerations in our decision-making process. We need to have data governance frameworks, data quality frameworks. I can stay really all day and talking about how important data governance and data quality is. but at the very minimum, the leaders need to have that data governance framework in place. They also need to, and I say this to my students all the time in every class, regardless if it's a heavy technical class or not in the artificial intelligence program. I say we need to always build frameworks and systems that are principled and responsible and based on governance frameworks. So that way we can ensure that these models are going by those principles and are creating the best of the breed. And last but not least, in terms of the transparency and explainability, it's only fair to us as consumers. It's only fair to to the clients that we serve, to the customers that we serve, that artificial intelligence models should be transparent. It should be explainable to the consumers, whether they understand the technical part or not. You still, as a company, you have the obligations to make them transparent and explainable. Now, as we march towards this, this kind of like breakthrough of all the innovation in artificial intelligence, as leaders, we do have the obligations to make decisions and to consider risk. And how do we mitigate that risk as we make the decisions? Well, first of all, there are some strategies that as leaders, we need to put in place, and we need to adhere to those strategies that we put in place to ensure that we have a diverse perspective. And that diverse perspective in our teams is incorporated into the artificial intelligence development. For instance, some of those strategies that I've brought in here are, we need to embed the diversity, equity, and inclusion into the design of our system. It starts with the design. A well-designed artificial intelligence systems not only involves that wide range of stakeholders from different demographics and groups and the background, but also with our team. So we need to make sure that we have that embedded DEI into our systems to begin with. We need to incorporate the DEI into the upskilling and training programs, because now we have all these artificial intelligence products in our hands, whether as consumers or as a company, but specifically I'm talking to the products built for companies or the companies building this product. So organizations need to invest on the upskilling and training of the programs that will make the employees better, so that way they can not only be aware of the artificial intelligence models, the related risks that are in there, but also to learn more about the artificial intelligence space. And last but not least, we need to use artificial intelligence as an opportunity to build the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because when used ethically and responsibly, artificial intelligence systems can create opportunities for us to do that. They can be used to improve workplace accessibility for people with disabilities. They can help businesses to tailor inclusion initiatives as we collect the data, as we analyze the data, as we customize that data, and we draw insight, based on employee engagement, satisfaction, and feedback. So all those things are good strategies to keep in mind. Now, in making artificial intelligence system transparent and explainable, that's really important, and it's not easy, but it's really important. It's crucial in the process. So first of all, in terms of explainability of AI, this is an emerging field that integrates techniques in machine learning, in statistics, in cognitive science, object-oriented programming. So really the goal from an artificial intelligence perspective is to make sure that people can understand through the explanation, that rather than relying on high-level rules. But how do we do that? How do we make sure that our artificial intelligence models are explainable? Well, we increase the trust, we make better decisions, we have compliance in place, we improve human AI collaboration, we improve our model performance. And really, explainable AI stands hand to hand with transparent AI. So artificial intelligence transparency refers to that openness that I talked a little bit earlier, the clarity of our artificial intelligence systems, particularly how we're making decisions with these artificial intelligence models, or the processes that are involved, or the data that is involved. So again, building that trust, making sure that everything that we build is based on the fairness principle, everything that we build is adhering to the regulatory, whatever, laws and regulations we have at the moment. Like we said, we have the European AI Act, we have the Colorado 10.1. So all those are the obligations that we have as leaders. Bias is one of those things, one of those concepts, and one of the risks that definitely needs to be mitigated, because we want to make sure that it doesn't lead to significant ethical and social implications. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we got to work with our teams. So we need to enable that diverse, multidisciplinary teams working in these algorithms. We need to promote that culture of ethics. We need to make sure that we have a diverse team in place. From an artificial intelligence model perspective or technical perspective, we need to make sure that the data set that we are developing and deploying is based on the best practices and the responsible algorithm development and those best practices and standards that we have in place. It also comes down to corporate governance and leadership, establishing that corporate governance for responsible AI end-to-end, all the internal policies, how to mitigate bias based on those policies, standards, and controls. It's really, really important. And naturally, we need to use our voice to influence and to advance in the industry, but we need to make sure that we are using our voice so that way we can lead others to adhere with the ethical considerations. I also want to take a look now in terms, because we talked a lot about from an organization perspective, because it's a lot of benefits that organizations can have from artificial intelligence, but let's take a look at the society, our community, and how we building that, kind of like, that ethical, those standards and best practices for our community, for our society. So as leaders, they are some things that we need to do in order for us to communicate how our artificial intelligence models are performing for us, but also for the society. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to measure and communicate the social impact of artificial intelligence initiatives, starting with the impact that they have in the organization. And first, we need to define the impact. What is the impact that this particular artificial intelligence product has done for my organization, but also, how does that help the community? How does that help the world? And to define your impact, you need to identify your problem, your solution, your beneficiaries, your outcome, the indicators, the metrics, and so on. Then we need to assess that impact. So assess how the project is performing against the indicators. Again, we have plenty of indicators in terms of effectiveness, efficiency, relevance, sustainability, scalability, because we want our artificial intelligence models to be scalable. And that's why you hear a lot the concept of scale AI, but scale AI needs to march together with the principle of responsible AI. And then once we have defined the impact and we have assessed that impact, then we can have that communication piece about the impact. How do we communicate the impact to stakeholders? How do we communicate the impact to the people around us, the community of people around us? And naturally, as we do this, we learn, we grow, we draw lesson learned, and both internally and externally, we need to improve the project design, the implementation, the management. And last but not least, we align that impact to the ethical principles and standard that I mentioned. We also need, in terms of the impact that artificial intelligence models have, or the systems, from a leadership perspective, we need to ensure long-term responsibility and accountability for artificial intelligence models after deployment. So it's not only what we develop and what we deploy, what do we do after? How do we monitor? How do we control those models? So first of all, we do continuous monitoring and evaluation. And I mention to my students all the time, and most of them that are here, they always remember when I say that, you have to continuously monitor, to continuously evaluate. But how do you evaluate? Well, you use performance metrics like OKRs, KPIs, other type of metrics like showcase metrics and such. And you want to identify the potential drifts in the accuracy or bias over time, because the data can change, something else can change. We need to have governance frameworks and policies in place. We need to have the models being transparent from a transparency and explainability perspective, to maintain that comprehensive documentation as we deal with design, with training of the data, with limitations and such. Human oversight and intervention. This is very important because, again, I'm going to explain a little bit later, we are not at the level where autonomous AI don't need the human in the loop. We do need that. Regular model updates and refinement. We continue to update for performance. We continue to update, to monitor and update for the ethical considerations that we talked so far. Risk assessment and mitigation. They will be risk. There is not such a thing. There is no project. There is no product that doesn't have risk. They will be risk. But we need to identify what are those risks that can bring harm. How can we mitigate those risks? And there are plenty of mitigation strategies. And I'm sure that companies and institutions like Northeastern and others have the right people in the right places to mitigate those risks. Artificial intelligence has been really the development that has been done has been incredible so far. And the evolution that has happened so far, but we're going to take a look very, very briefly in the future state as well. So I put this slide together. I know that the writing is a little bit small in there, but I wanted to put as much information as I could. So in terms of artificial intelligence, they are two main categories in which we classify artificial intelligence models. And those are based on the capabilities of artificial intelligence and functionalities of artificial intelligence. In terms of the capabilities of artificial intelligence, we have pretty much there are 7 types of artificial intelligence, but 3 of them are based on the, 5 of them is based on the capabilities and 2 of them are based on the functionalities. So the stage that the whole entire world is right now is this stage of narrow AI, or the unflattering name, weak AI. And it's used to perform narrow tasks, which, they can perform those tasks better than humans, but that's where we are right now. We are at weak AI. Then we have this general AI, also known as strong AI. This is used for memes, is used for science fiction, is used for betting the markets. But and then we have the super AI as well, which is way right now out of the reach. But both the general AI and super AI are more theoretical right now. We are not there, and that's why I put in there that from a functionality perspective is the theory of mind or the self-awareness AI for the super AI. So where we are now to the narrow AI, there are 2 main functionalities that we are using right now, the whole entire world is using right now, and that's reactive machines and limited memory AI. So when it comes to the reactive machines, these are machines that are designed to perform a very specialized task. So the machine AI are systems that are designed to perform, for instance, to analyze amount of data, to produce intelligent output, and we have had many of those done, and we're using it on everyday basis. Limited memory AI, this can recall past events and outcomes and monitor specific objects or situations over time. It can be used for past and present moment data to decide a course of actions most likely to help achieve a desired outcome. Like I said, the theory of mind AI and self-aware AI, which is the general AI and super AI, those are way in the future. So that's why I continue to mention that human in the loop. So they are, as we march towards this evolution of artificial intelligence, and as we look forward to other stages, not only the narrow AI or weak AI that we are right now, we can draw some lesson learned. We can draw some kind of like analogy when it comes to other technological revolution that can guide us in order for us to build those responsible artificial intelligence models and systems. So one of the examples that I wanted to bring up is the internet boom. Artificial intelligence has become really, really integrated in our daily life. We do everything with artificial intelligence, starting with things that we do in everyday life, but also customer service or autonomous driving and other things. And this trend will continue. We'll develop more technology, more AI. And if we draw kind of like, some lesson learned from the internet boom, there are some things that we should keep in mind. For instance, in terms of innovation, during the internet, the age of the internet boom, we had, it completely transformed our lives in terms of the e-commerce, and other, like, for instance, like in the financial industry and such. So we can draw some really similarities when it comes to that. In terms of the adoption, in terms of the social impact, we need to work on that in terms of economic disruption. So we do have kind of, already some track record that, that we can draw lesson learned, that we can, draw some type of, future needs there. When it comes to the future of human and AI collaboration from a leadership perspective, we need to prepare. Every organization need to prepare for that. I draw some type of statistics in here where, for instance, organizations estimate that 34% of all the business-related tasks today are performed by machines, or 2/3 of the jobs could, partially automated by AI, or 40% of the businesses consider AI over hiring new employees, or 88% of the marketers say that they need to increase the use of automation and AI to meet the customer expectation and stay competitive. 75% of the professionals expect the Gen AI to cause some significant and disruption change in the nature of the industry competition. So all those things are great things, but it becomes our responsibility now how to handle that. So I have brought in some perspective from a leadership perspective in terms of the future of that human and AI communication. So from a leader standpoint, we want our leaders to be curious and seek to understand AI. We want our leaders to view AI as a collaborator, not as a competitor, meaning that let's embrace this technology. Let's upskill the workers or the people that we work with. Let's do the training. Let's do all those things that will make people aware of these products that we have in our hands. So that embracing that idea of change is really something very imperative when it comes to welcoming and anticipating shifts that are going to challenge us, and it's going to happen. We need to think globally, meaning that we need to think big. That's why leaders are visionaries. We need to emphasize the human connection. Machines can do tasks very well. That narrow AI that we're using right now can do tasks very well, but they lack emotional intelligence. So that's where we come in the picture, with that human relationship that will remain the core of the effective leadership. And we need to focus on value creation. At the end of the day, we get measured as leaders based on the productivity of what we bring to our company. So some practical consideration from a leadership perspective in the future state of the human AI, I would say invest on AI, engage in AI education and training, prepare for change management, collaborate with artificial intelligence expert, research scientists and such. Develop AI strategies, promote the ethical use of AI. I can't stress that enough, is one of the most important things. Rethink job design, workflows, frameworks that needs to be created, and create an inclusive AI culture. Thank you. I hope that I didn't take too much time, but I'm happy to elaborate in any of those things that I mentioned.
Well, so
right.
you kept everybody pretty much on spellbound here. You know, every slide people were just focusing so much. So I think you kept a beautiful, you know, stuff. But I would like to start with Les here in terms of the questions, and then, you know, we'll continue to take it from there. Les?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it, Mimosa. A couple of things impressed me, not just the presentation itself, because I was very impressed with the information and the amount of information you had, but the way you compacted it and presented it in a short period of time. You just presented us with so much good detail, and I know we could have spent an hour on each slide.
100%.
Yeah, but it's fair. I'm just really impressed with how you did that. But I wondered if I could start off, and I want to encourage everybody on the webinar to please ask any questions you might have. We have about 15 minutes left, so let's take advantage of it. But I want to start with a kind of an easy one, I guess, in many ways. But one of the things we do in this webinar, and that I'm very proud of, and that all of us, my colleagues and I in our program like to do, is we invite people who are practitioners rather than just full-time academics, people who have actually done what they're talking about on an academic scale. And in this case, this is no exception with you. You've had some very impressive positions in organizations, and you've done. So I would like to focus the question on you directly. In your experiences, in your world that you have, where you have worked in business and industry, what would you say was the primary leadership style that was applied or used, maybe that you used or that you observed most often being used by people in leadership positions as AI was developing? In other words, what leadership style? You talked about transformation early on in your presentation, and then you talked a lot about, and Shreya and I were very happy to see and I know Teresa was too, about ethics. We focus on that tremendously in our program. But what leadership style do you see? You know, or maybe if you want to be honest, I mean, were people kind of directed, dictatorial, maybe command style, or was it more open, transactional? Which style of leadership?
Yeah.
That's
a really good question, Les. So not by accident, I put that transformational leadership style in there. So I'm going to speak at least for the last 4 years that I've been working in the product space with artificial intelligence models and such. It's really important that the leadership style, but especially in the digital transformation journey that I have been through, that transformational leadership style have helped me tremendously. Putting all those frameworks together, making sure that the team is gathered, around that vision and mission that is so important in any system or product or data pipelines, anything that we build there, any platform that we build. So it's one thing so the style of the transformational leadership is very collaborative, very curious, very innovative, very motivational, and all those things. And the reason that I have positioned myself for years now in that particular, it's not only because of the need that came from the digital transformation, but it's a style that works because we need to innovate in the artificial intelligence. We need to motivate our people, to do better. And, so that has worked, really well. Another thing, that I need to mention in terms of why this particular transformational leadership style has worked is because Now we work more in the cross-functional teams. The days when people used to work in silos, those are gone. So cross-functionally, I've had projects that I've led over 200 people in the project. So how do you motivate? How do you manage the workload? How do you not only to the cross-functional team that is involved in the development, but also the stakeholders? Because again, we're building this products, these data products and artificial intelligence products for the stakeholders. So that's why the transformational style leadership for me has been something that has helped me through the journey.
Unmute myself. Thank you. That was great. And I sort of assumed, or I thought that would be the answer.
Right.
I did, especially since you led with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you never know, because some
Right.
managers are more comfortable with situational, some are more
Right.
comfortable with
Right.
transactional reward
Some
systems.
managers can be functional managers, and that's fine. That's where maybe they find themselves better suited for that, and they're very focused on just the functional part. I have been very lucky to work with and to build the high performing teams and manage high performing teams where we innovated the products. We build the products from the ground up. So that's why that worked better, especially when you're innovating and you're creating new technologies and breaking ground of artificial intelligence models. Like for instance, right now, I'm breaking some grounds with agentic AI, and some of the the latest and the greatest frameworks that have been introduced. It's transformational. It's something that it's going to be like the next thing.
That's fantastic. It relates to when I teach some of my class, especially team leadership. Steve Jobs, Apple, transformational style. I mean, he just got them
100%.
going to create this great thing. So anyway,
100%.
again,
And that and last thing I'm going to say, something comes to mind from Steve Jobs, was one of my favorite people in the world, and so he said that the reason that we hire smart people is because not to tell them what to do, but for them to tell us how to do good things, how to innovate.
Fantastic. All right, I encourage people, if you have questions, put it in the chat box. In the meantime, I'm going to ask Teresa, my colleague, if she has might have a question to ask.
I'm happy that I get to ask Mimosa my question. I want to second what everybody said, which is fabulous, terrific presentation.
Thank you.
What I was curious if you could talk a little bit more about two areas that are related and of particular interest to me is one is how do you individuals make sure the source of the data that you're getting from AI is accurate? And as you brought up, is it ethical? How is it sourced? Is it cited properly? And that's totally related to the second topic, which is DEI. And how do we make sure there aren't biases being replicated? And I know you talked about, and actually one of our colleagues, and I wrote down his title to make sure I got, Richard O'Brien, is now Northeastern's Chief Inclusion and Belonging Officer. So we're really excited about that. But I'm curious from your perspective, what can we as individuals, either as faculty, as students, or other individuals, make sure we're getting data that's properly sourced and valid, and also that it's considering things like DEI and inclusion?
Thank you. That's a really good question. So I'm gonna start with the first part of the question. Data sources. That's one of the things that I have been heavily involved in that. Luckily, that I've been heavily involved in that for the last 18 years. When artificial intelligence models were at the very beginning, I was building data qualities and data governance. So how to ensure that we have the right data sets or we have the right data sources? I think that the first thing that we need to ensure is that we have a framework for data governance and data quality. I can't stress enough the data quality. So the programs of data quality that I've built for Endurance International Group, for Bose Corporation, for Mass Mutual, those have been based on dimensions of quality. For instance, we want to use particular data sources, particular data sets. Well, one thing to do it is to make sure that the data quality program is working and it's operational and is part of the process. 85%, almost 85% of the time of a data scientist and an artificial intelligence engineer is used primarily to make sure that the data is in the position that it needs to be before it's used for artificial intelligence models. So data quality and data governance is going to help on that. In terms of the data quality, for instance, I put dimensions of completeness, accuracy, uniqueness, timeliness. So all those dimensions, when you're comparing the data sources against those dimensions, you're going to see that things are going to come up that we can fix. And that's what data management field is all about. But at the same time, companies that invest in data governance and data quality also invest on this, kind of like the source of truth. Cataloging the data, having the tools and technology to catalog the data, so that way, when the data scientists and artificial intelligence engineers need that data, they can go to that source of truth, and they can, with a lot of trust and confidence, they can say that we can definitely, are working with data sources. My concern is with the LLMs right now, because LLMs are built on, I call it like earth data, everything data that is done. So we need to work a little bit more in terms of the quality. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that the big companies that are creating these artificial intelligence models or LLMs, LLM frameworks, they need to sit down together and, with the policymakers to create those ethical data sources, so that way we are able to access APIs that are they're at high quality. But personally, what I've done on my space is create data quality programs, making sure that the dimensions are against those data sources. The other part that you asked about was, how do you embed diversity, equity, and inclusion into the design of the system? Well, we hear a lot about the risk of the algorithm bias and the risk that, and really it's a genuine concern. And without careful design, testing, guardrails, artificial intelligence can amplify and can perpetuate existing bias. But that doesn't have to be the case, because we can embed those into our system. We can make sure that, for instance, like when we're choosing the data sources, we need to make sure that we need to establish a system that is fair, that is transparent, that respects diversity, that respects different cultures, that can be easily accessed by all the other groups. For instance, I'll give you some of the examples that are going on right now, covering the mortgage lending. Those are some of the artificial intelligence models that need to be looked, from that perspective, or job screening, or justice decision in the law and order field that we have, or we have other type of activities that are going on. Like, for instance, I pulled a couple of where transparent AI have been done well. For instance, Adobe has done really, really well when trained the models and ensuring that those images and the data are they have referenced the sources where those images are coming from, so people can really go and see those references. But then you have other, for instance, artificial intelligence models done bad. Like, for instance, OpenAI, it has done an incredible job in creating the GPT for us as a framework. But then the image generation on the models like DALL-E have been accused of failing to be transparent over the data that is used to train those models. And it led to lawsuits from artists, from writers, claiming that their material was used without permission. So those are some of the things that we need to be very mindful, very careful in terms of the data that we're using and how we're embedding the DEI in that space. I personally embed the DEI right at the design of the process and continue, through that. And I'm very proud of the teams, the very diverse teams that I've built, because that's where you have that diversity of ideas and innovation.
Wow, fantastic. Good, really good. I appreciate that. That was a good, very good, comprehensive response to a very good question. We have in our chat box, we have someone, Susan Mantrala, ask a question that is very similar to something I was going to ask, but it's actually written much better than I would have presented it. So maybe I think we have probably time for one more. Yeah, we probably have time for one more question. And Susan says, thank you so much for the information. Someone in my workplace brought up the company WorkFusion recently. The company deploys digital workers. The company says AI digital workers are not bots. They are highly skilled, AI-enabled digital employees that work alongside real-world colleagues. Is this an example of weak AI? It seems like there must be some level of decision-making involved in this type of AI that seems to go beyond tech-like technology like MS Copilot.
That's a really good question, Susan. So I still stay to, and again, like, no, this is, it's not my opinion. It's not my personal opinion. It's just that right now we are to the narrow AI, or the unflattering word that we use, the weak AI. It's not that, it's not that it's weak in terms of the task that it's performing. It's just that it's not as advanced as the other stages that we are going to reach decades from now. So when I mentioned, for instance, when we talk about the LLMs, when we talk about, other types of models that we're building now, it sounds to me that this company is, is in that space. The whole world is in that space to begin with. But the reason I say that is because artificial intelligence models, they do make decisions. They learn from reinforcement learning and such. So it's not that they're just doing like, very simple tasks, the narrow AI where we have, the models that we're building now, the tasks that they are performing, they are, really good tasks. They're tasks that, like for instance, the self-driving cars, they, each and every one of the agent, it's kind of like, making sure that the task is done, and collectively they make the car drive. But we still at the narrow AI, because we are very, very early. I know we have done a tremendous amount of work. And for me, when people say that, AI is new, I don't accept that, because for me, AI started with Alan Turing, who asked the question, or made the statement rather, that we need to make sure and to think about, can machines think like us humans? So he was the first one, the father of the modern computing, that started artificial intelligence. Then, we come to the winter AI, where we created the definitions and all that stuff. But even though we have come a long way, we are still just scratching the surface of AI. For instance, like in deep learning, and I teach neural networks, convolutional, recurrent neural networks and such. And I say to my students all the time that, we are just scratching the surface.
Wow. Thank you so much. I agree with you, but it scares me when you say that.
We're
just now scratching the surface.
Trust me, I'm with you, Les.
We may be going to the point. My attention. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, because when we go to the next stage of AI, like, general AI and super AI, at that point, we're expecting, like, the AI agents to feel emotions like us, right, to make decisions, but without our intervenience at all.
Yeah. What caught my attention years ago was when I love to watch Jeopardy, and when Jeopardy had two of their top contestants matched up against Watson, the IBM computer.
Oh, yeah.
And at one point, one of the contestants said, they asked him something about, well, what are you going to do? And he said, I've got to bet it all unless you decide to pull the plug on Watson. I'm never going to be able to even come close. And that was the point.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. I got to give credit to IBM. What IBM with Watson did in the healthcare decades and decades ago, coming to this point, and they've made it even better. IBM and Watson completely revolutionized the healthcare in terms of the artificial intelligence models. I got to give them the credit. I love the product.
Yeah, awesome. Very good. I know we're almost out of time, but there's one question from Rashni that I just don't want to neglect, and we'll make this the last one. And Rashni says, thank you for the information session. My question is that will the ethical considerations and other privacy concerns keep changing based on even little improvements happening in the AI field? If so, how will we affect this?
So if I understand the question correctly, the privacy challenges are going to be more and more, but it's how we are going to handle those. So I'm a privacy practitioner. I'm very well versed. As a matter of fact, my PhD thesis was based on the dissertation was based on privacy concerns in artificial intelligence and data mining and such. So to answer that question, I would say that, from a privacy practitioner perspective, we are going to have our hands full with privacy and security issues, especially privacy. The reason is because right now companies keep building and building and building without frameworks in place. And that scares me. That's the Wild West that, I always say that, that scares me a little bit, because the other problem for the companies is that when the regulatory compliance are coming in the picture, they're not going to be ready. That's the problem. If we don't create those type of frameworks from the beginning, they're not going to be ready. Like, for instance, like the European AI Act that just came, like, in the recent months, they're going to give just enough time, but they're not going to give like all the time in the world for the companies, because they want the models to be registered. They want full transparency on the models. They want to see how the privacy of the data is embedded in those models and such. The privacy mechanisms, if companies don't have that, and I've built those privacy preserving mechanisms for companies, they need to have those in place. So again, to answer the question, we are going to have our hands full. As privacy practitioners, we are going to have our hands full. How we mitigate those risks, that's what companies need to pay attention right now, which they're not. Most of the companies are not. They're just taking those benefits of artificial intelligence and running with it, which is wonderful. We should do nothing to get on the way for that. But at some point, we need to consider what is in compliance, what is not in compliance. When you mentioned in your question the ethical considerations, that's the thing that keeps me up at night, because creating harm to the society, that's unacceptable to me. Revealing for instance, clinical trial data, the data of the subject, that's unacceptable to me. So at some point, companies need to make sure and know and comply and adhere with what's acceptable, what is not acceptable.
Right. Right.
And I'm going to close up this this answer with Northeastern University is doing a tremendous amount of work with the Experiential Responsible AI Institute. I've been part of some of the activities there. Ricardo is he's doing like an incredible amount of work. It's just like the whole entire team there is doing an incredible amount of work, and they're trying to to educate the corporations and the organization. So more to come there, but we are going to have our hands full.
Yeah, very good. And I think we know that some things are, as you said, are evident for ethics.
Right.
I mean, we know what's right.
Some of those we don't.
Things, yeah, but some things, continuous change of AI will bring up new issues all the time. For Roshni, for his question, for that particular question, it's an ongoing issue, but some things are non-negotiable. Right. As we know, plagiarism, that sort of, just simply non-negotiable.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
Mimosa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It has been an absolute pleasure having you on our Leadership Matters webinar. I thank you for accepting and for coming and for sharing such great ideas. Really fantastic information.
Pleasure is mine. This was a great group of people. I'm so happy to have these conversations with you today. And please, invite me more, when you have like, webinars like this, and, so that way I can share the little that I know.
Well, and a lot more people will be viewing this, your talk, because we're going to have it available to them by video. So, I mean, you'll reach a greater audience for sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for the participants for joining us today. The next webinar for us will be an interesting one. I think you'll all find it's a fascinating one for me, Women in Leadership.
Wow.
And we have someone who is a corporate organizational leader who will talk to us about that. And that'll be on January the 23rd, 2025, next year. Easy to say that, next year. And only 2 months away, a little over 2 months away, but I hope many of you will be able to join us for that as well. And again, Mimosa, thank you so much. Thank you to
Very
Sriram for
welcome.
everything, and for Teresa for helping us put all of this together. And again, appreciate it, and I look forward to working with you again, Mimosa, sometime in the near future.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, everyone. Enjoy the rest
Thank you,
of the day.
everybody.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Mimosa.
Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Take care.
Bye.